We're looking at one of the boldest paintings in Western art history, Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. When this painting was first displayed in Florence in 1485, it sent shockwaves through the city. Because this was the first life-sized female nude in Western art since classical antiquity. But this wasn't Eve being expelled from Eden, ashamed of her nakedness. This wasn't the damned souls sent to hell in Dante's Inferno. This wasn't shame or punishment. It was a celebration of the human body, of love, and openly of sexuality. When we look at the painting, we see a naked woman standing on a seashell being blown toward shore. On the left, two winged figures push her forward. On the right, a woman waits with a cloak to cover her. Behind them, a calm sea, orange trees, a gentle landscape. Simple at first glance, but behind this image lies one of the Renaissance's most radical ideas. Art doesn't have to serve God. It can exist for pleasure. For its time, this was revolutionary. The Renaissance, meaning rebirth, began in 14th century Florence. A renewed interest in ancient Greek and Roman culture sparked an intellectual awakening. For centuries, art had served religion almost exclusively: saints, angels, biblical scenes. But the Renaissance gave artists new freedom to explore different subjects. Mythological paintings were an entirely new art form. This is Venus's birth myth. But this story begins strangely. The god Saturn castrates his father Uranus and throws his genitals into the sea. From the sea foam, a woman of incredible beauty emerges. But notice, this painting doesn't actually show the moment of birth. It shows the next part. Venus arrives at the island of Cyprus on a seashell. On the left are Zephyr and Florence. Zephyr, the god of the warm spring wind, embraces his wife as he blows Venus toward shore. Rose petals swirl through the air. Rose is said to have first bloomed at Venus's birth. On the right stands one of the Horai, likely the goddess of summer, waiting to welcome Venus with a flowing red cloak. And at the center is Venus herself, Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Botticelli had painted Venus before, but never like this. Here, she is fully nude, the first non-biblical female nude in Western art since antiquity, likely inspired by the classical Medici Venus sculpture. Her pose, known as Venus Pudica, hides and reveals at the same time a posture associated with female sexuality and modesty, a visual language never applied to male heroes, whose nudity symbolized strength and action. This pose would shape Western art for centuries. Venus appears statue-like and idealized, her pale skin outlined to resemble marble. Her elongated body defies realism. The shell couldn't support her weight, but realism isn't the point. None of the figures cast shadows. They float on a single plane, creating a theatrical, dreamlike space. Botticelli makes it clear. This is imagination, not reality. Everything moves. Wind pushes Venus forward, hair and drapery ripple. Roses scatter through the air. The barren shoreline hints that once Venus steps ashore, the world will bloom. The surface details are meticulous. Botticelli, trained as a goldsmith, tipped blossoms with real gold and emphasized decorative line over naturalism. And one strange detail stands out. Bulrushes growing in seawater, likely a sly, symbolic reference to Venus's violent mythological origin. A private joke for a sharp-eyed Renaissance audience. Now, some technical details. Botticelli used egg tempera technique. For Venus's body, he used very thin layers, giving luminosity and radiance. Tempera is difficult. You can't blend wet on wet. Venus's golden hair is achieved through light and dark rhythmic lines, with pure gold highlights added. Why use tempera? because it has a graphic quality and luminosity you don't get with oil. And unlike oil, it won't yellow or fade. The egg dries to form a protective coat, so color remains clear and bright over time. As for symbolism, Botticelli knew the philosopher-priest Marsilio Ficino, whose mission was to combine ancient philosophy with Christianity. His idea of a celestial Venus had her as a symbol for divine love. If you look at compositions of Christ's baptism, you'll see similarities. A semi-naked figure in the middle, 2 flying angels on the left, an outstretched hand on the right. Mary, like Venus, is often shown with the scallop shell. In Christian symbolism, it represents baptism and resurrection. In pagan symbolism, fertility and sexuality. Part of Botticelli's genius was taking a pagan story, a nude female, and making them acceptable to contemporary Christian thinking. Now, the painting's fate. On February 7th, 1497, a huge bonfire burned in central Florence. Poetry books, classical texts, paintings, sculptures, anything considered frivolous. Florence had fallen under the spell of Dominican friar Girolamo Savonarola, whose fire and brimstone sermons mesmerized thousands. One of Savonarola's most enthusiastic followers was Botticelli. According to some accounts, he willingly threw some of his own paintings into the bonfire. We're fortunate his greatest mythological works survived, only because they were stored safely beyond reach. After Savonarola's death, Botticelli was increasingly seen as old-fashioned. Commissions dried up. A sad decline into obscurity began. He was at the height of his powers when he painted The Birth of Venus. But by his death, in 1510, he was nearly forgotten. With The Birth of Venus, Botticelli created a work that was truly revolutionary. A work that changed the course of art history. One that still looks intensely modern to 21st century eyes. In fact, The Birth of Venus is as influential now as it was 5 centuries ago. One of the most recognizable images in the world, the ancient gods may have given birth to Venus. But Botticelli gave her life. What do you see in this painting? A scandal? A celebration? Or proof of art's transformative power? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if there's another masterpiece you'd like me to explore, let me know. Goodbye.